This is a rather elongated part 2 of the lost days of Samuel and the days of King David. We'll start today at 1 Samuel, the 9th chapter, the first verse. There was a man of Benjamin whose name was Kish, the son of Abiel, son of Zeror, son of Becherath, son of Ephiah, a Benjamite, a man of wealth. And he had a son whose name was Saul, a handsome young man. There was not a man among the people of Israel more handsome than he. That in itself is not a problem because people are like that. But some people take more of it from it than they should. From his shoulders upward, he was taller than any of the people. Three, now the donkeys of Kish, Saul's father, were lost. So Kish said to Saul, his son, "Take one of the young men with you and arise and go and look for the donkeys." And he passed through the hill country of Ephraim and passed through the land of Shalisha, but they did not find them. And they passed through the land of Shalem, but they were not there. Then they passed through the land of Benjamin, but did not find them. When they came to the land of Zuph, Saul said to his servant who was with him, "Come, let us go back, lest my father cease to care about the donkeys and become anxious about us." And he said to him, "Behold, there is a man of Elohim in the city, and he is a man who is held in honor. All that he says comes true. So now let us go there. Perhaps he can tell us the way we should go." Then Saul said to his servant, "But if we go, what can we bring the man? For the bread in our sacks is gone, and there is no present to bring the man of Elohim. What do we have?" The servant answered Saul again, "Here I have with me a quarter of a shekel of silver, and I will give it to the man of Elohim to tell us our way." Formerly in Israel, when a man went to inquire of Elohim, he said, "Come, let us go to the seer." For today's prophet was formerly called a seer. Verse 10. And Saul said to his servant, "Well said. Come, let us go." So they went to the city where the man of Yahweh Elohim was. And they went up to the hill country. They met young women coming out to draw water and said to them, "Is the seer here?" They answered, "He is. Behold, he is just ahead of you. Hurry, he has been just now to the city, because the people have a sacrifice today on the high place where They can't stop then. They can't stop. And he goes along with it for a while, but not for a long while. 13. As soon as you enter the city, you will find him before he goes up to the high place to eat. For the people will not eat until he comes, since he must bless the sacrifice. Afterward, those who are invited will eat. Now go up, for you will meet him immediately. So they went up to the city. As they were entering the city, they saw Samuel coming out toward them on his way up to the high place. Now the day before Saul came, Yahweh Elohim had revealed to Samuel, tomorrow after this time I will send you a man from the land of Benjamin, and you shall anoint him to be prince over my people Israel. He shall save my people from the hand of the Philistines. For I have seen my people, because their cry has come to me. Think about that for a minute. All of you who think that the limitations of his grace are limited to the New Testament. These people were having their meals in the high places, in the groves, so to speak. And he still honored them up to this point. That's grace, isn't it? To my measure, that's grace. You don't want to think that, but that's grace. 17. When Samuel saw Saul, Yahweh Elohim told him, "Here is the man of whom I spoke to you. He it is who shall restrain my people." Then Saul approached Samuel in the gate and said, "Tell me, where is the house of the seer?" Samuel answered Saul, "I am the seer. Go up before me to the high place, for today you shall eat with me. And in the morning I will let you go and will tell you all that is on your mind." I will tell you what's on your mind? You kind of got to go along with this stuff and clarify it, because it comes at you so fast sometimes. You don't hear it the way you think you do. That's what he said. And 20 fulfills that. As for your donkeys that were lost 3 days ago, there's your proof right there. How did he know that they were missing 3 donkeys? Do not set your mind on them, for they have been found, and for whom is all that is desirable in Israel. It is not for you and for all your father's house. Saul answered, "Am I not a Benjamite, from the least of the tribes of Israel? And is not my clan the humblest of all clans of the tribe of Benjamin? Why then have you spoken to me in this way?" His ego already comes out. Verse 22. Then Samuel took Saul and his young man and brought him into the hall and gave them a place at the head of those who had been invited, who were about 30 persons. And Samuel said to the cook, "Bring the portion I gave you, of which I said to you, put it aside." So the cook took up the leg and what was on it, and set them before Saul. And Samuel said, "See, what was kept aside is set before you. Eat, because it was kept for you until the hour appointed, that you might eat with the guests." So Saul ate with Samuel that day. And when they came down from the high place into the city, a bed was spread for Saul on the roof, and he lay down to sleep. Then at the break of dawn, Samuel called to Saul on the roof, "Up, that I may send you on your way." So Saul arose, and both he and Samuel went out into the street. As they were going down to the outskirts of the city, Samuel said to Saul, "Tell the servant to pass on before us. And when he has passed on, stop here yourself for a while. Then I may make known to you the word of Yahweh Elohim." First Samuel, the 10th chapter, the first verse. Quite a bit here, but the only way to get through this and get the understanding is to get through it all. There's a little here and there through this that will enlighten you a lot to the plight of Israel. And a lot of their plight is their own. Verse 1. Samuel took a jar of the special oil and poured the oil on Saul's head. Samuel kissed Saul and said, "Yahweh Elohim has anointed you to be the leader over the people who belong to him." A lot of people miss that. Over the people who belong to him. That makes some exceptions, but you don't know who they are. Yahweh Elohim does, however. You will control the people. You will save them from the enemies that are all around them. He has anointed you to be ruler over his people. Here is a sign that will prove this is true. After you leave me today, you will meet two men near Rachel's tomb on the border of Benjamin at Zelzah. The two men will say to you, "Someone found the donkeys you were looking for." Your father stopped worrying about his donkeys. Now he is worried about you. He is saying, "What will I do about my son?" Samuel said, "Then you will go until you come to the large oak tree at Tabor. There will meet you, 3 men will meet you there. They will be on their way to worship Elohim at Bethel. One man will be carrying 3 young goats. The second man will be carrying 3 loaves of bread. And the third man will have a leather bag full of wine." How appropriate. These 3 men will say hello to you. They will offer you 2 bread offerings reserved for priests. And you will accept that bread. Then you will go to Gibeah Elohim. There is a Philistine fort in that place. When you come to this town, a group of prophets will come out. These prophets will come down from the place for worship. They will be prophesying. They will be playing harps, tambourines, flutes, and lyres. Then Yahweh Elohim's spirit will come on you with great power. You will be changed. You will be like a different man. You will begin to prophesy with these prophets. After that happens, you can do whatever you choose to do, because Elohim will be with you. Verse 8, go to Gilgal before me. Then I will come there to you, and I will offer burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. But you must wait 7 days. Then I will come and tell you what to do. Just as Saul turned to leave Samuel, Elohim turned Saul's life around. All these things happened that day. When Saul and his servant came to Gibeah Elohim, Saul met a group of prophets. Elohim's spirit came on Saul with great power, and Saul prophesied with the prophets. Some of the people who had known Saul before saw him prophesying with the prophets, so they asked each other, "What has happened to Kish's son? Is Saul also one of the prophets?" A man living in Gibeah Elohim said, "Yes, and it seems that he is their leader." That is why this became a famous saying. Is Saul also one of the prophets? 13. After Saul finished prophesying, he went to the place of worship. Saul's uncle asked Saul and his servant, "Where have you been?" Saul said, "We were looking for donkeys. When we couldn't find them, we went to see Samuel." Saul's uncle said, "Please tell me, what did Samuel say to you?" Saul answered, "Samuel told us the donkeys were already found." He did not tell his uncle everything. Saul did not tell him what Samuel said about the kingdom. Samuel told all the Israelites to meet together with Yahweh Elohim at Mizpah. Samuel told the Israelites, "Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, says, I led Israel out of Egypt. I saved you from Egypt's control and from the other kingdoms that tried to hurt you. But today you have rejected your Elohim. Your Elohim saves you from all your troubles and problems. But you said, no, we want a king to rule us. Now come, stand before Yahweh Elohim in your family groups and tribes." Samuel brought all the tribes of Israel near. Then Samuel began to choose the new king. First, the tribe of Benjamin was chosen. Samuel told each tribe in the family of Benjamin to pass by. Matri's family was chosen. Then Samuel told each man in Matri's family to walk by. Saul, son of Kish, was chosen. But when the people looked for Saul, they could not find him. Then they asked Yahweh Elohim, "Has Saul come here yet?" Yahweh Elohim said, "Saul is hiding behind the supplies." There was some humility still there. 23. The people ran and took Saul out from behind the supplies. Saul stood up among the people. He was a head taller than anyone else. Samuel said to all the people, "See the man Yahweh Elohim has chosen. There is no one like Saul among the people." Then the people shouted, "Long live the king." 25. Samuel explained the rules of the kingdom to the people. He wrote the rules in a book and put the book before Yahweh Elohim. Then Samuel told the people to go home. Saul also went to his home in Gibeah. Elohim touched the hearts of brave men who then began to follow Saul. But some troublemakers said, "How can this man save us?" They said bad things about Saul and refused to bring gifts to him. Whenever a new king is crowned, all the people give him gifts. That was what happened with Yeshua at his birth. Same thing happened. The frankincense, all the myrrh and all that, those were the gifts of his birth. They said bad things about Saul and refused to bring gifts to him. But Saul said nothing. This is good. King Nahash of the Ammonites had been herding the tribes of Gad and Reuben. Nahash poked out the eye of each of the men and did not allow anyone to help them. He poked out the right eye of every Israelite man living in the area east of Jordan, the Jordan River. But 7,000 Israelite men ran away from the Ammonites and came to Jabesh Gilead. Continuing in 1 Samuel the 11th chapter, the first verse. About a month later, Nahash the Ammonite and his army surrounded Jabesh Gilead. All the people of Jabesh said to Nahash, "If you will make a treaty with us, we will serve you." Even now, already, they're splitting about Saul and getting another way to go. "If you will make a treaty with us, we will serve you." But he answered, "I will make a treaty with you, people, only if I can poke out the right eye of each person." Then all Israel will be ashamed. They were trying to get away with something. And he caught them up in it. Verse 3. The leaders of Jabesh said to Nahash, "Let us have 7 days. We will send messengers through all Israel. If no one comes to help us, we will come up to you and surrender to you." These people are just bad news. Verse 4. The messengers came to Gibeah where Saul lived. They told the people the news. The people cried loudly. Saul had been out in the field with his oxen. When he came in from the field, he heard the people crying and asked, "What's wrong with the people? Why are they crying?" Then the people said, Saul told Saul what the messengers from Jabesh said. Saul listened to their story. Then Elohim's spirit came on him with great power. Saul became very angry. He took a pair of oxen and cut them into pieces. Then he gave the pieces of the oxen to messengers. He ordered the messengers to carry the pieces throughout the land of Israel. He told them to give this message to the Israelites: "Come follow Saul and Samuel. If anyone does not come and help them, this same thing will happen to his oxen." A great fear from Yahweh Elohim came on the people. They all came together as one person. Saul gathered the men together at Bezek. There were 300,000 men from Israel and 30,000 men from Judah. Saul and his army told the messengers from Jabesh, "Tell the people at Jabesh in Gilead that by noon tomorrow you will be saved." The messengers told Saul's message to the people at Jabesh, and they were very happy. Then the people of Jabesh said to Nahash the Ammonite, "Tomorrow we will come to you, and you can do whatever you want to us." They got help now. And that other eye not put out if things work out. That's a big if. Verse 11. The next morning, Saul separated his soldiers into 3 groups. At sunrise, Saul and his soldiers entered the Ammonite camp. Saul attacked while they were changing guards that morning. He and his soldiers defeated the Ammonites before noon. The Ammonite soldiers all ran away in different directions. No 2 soldiers stayed together. Then the people said to Samuel, "Where are the people who said they didn't want Saul to rule as king? Bring them here, and we will kill them." But Saul said, "No, don't kill anyone today. Yahweh Elohim saved Israel today." Then Samuel said to the people, "Come, let's go to Gilgal. At Gilgal, we will again make Saul the king." Confirm it, in other words, for those who didn't get it the first time. All the people went to Gilgal. There, in front of Yahweh Elohim, the people made Saul king. They offered fellowship offerings to Elohim. Saul and all the Israelites had a great celebration. Continuing in 1 Samuel, the 12th chapter, the 1st verse. Samuel said to all Israel, "I have done everything you wanted me to do. I have put a king over you. Now you have a king to lead you. I am old and gray, but my sons are here with you. That should have told him something right there. It didn't. I have been your leader since I was young. Here I am. If I have done anything wrong, you must tell me these things to Yahweh Elohim. You must tell these things to Yahweh Elohim and his chosen king. Did I steal anyone's ox or donkey? Did I hurt or cheat anyone? Did I ever take money or even a pair of sandals to do something wrong? If I did any of these things, I will make it right. The Israelites answered, no, you never did anything too bad to us. You never cheated us or took things away from us. Samuel said to the Israelites, Yahweh Elohim and his chosen king. This hurt him a little bit, huh? A little bit. How many times somebody mentions something that they don't like is an indication of how much they didn't like it. Yahweh Elohim and his chosen king are witnesses today. They heard what you said, that you found nothing wrong with me. Why this king then? That's what he was saying. The people answered, yes, Yahweh Elohim is witness. Then Samuel said to the people, Yahweh Elohim has seen what happened. He is the one who chose Moses and Aaron and brought your ancestors out of Egypt. Now, stand there. I will accuse you before Yahweh Elohim, and I will tell you about the good things Yahweh Elohim did for you and your ancestors. Verse 8. Jacob went to Egypt. Later, the Egyptians made life hard for his descendants. So they cried to Yahweh Elohim for help. A little background here. Yahweh Elohim sent Moses and Aaron, and they took your ancestors out of Egypt and led them to live in this place. But your ancestors forgot Yahweh, their Elohim. So he let them become slaves of Sisera, the commander of the army at Hazor. Then Yahweh Elohim let them become the slaves of the Philistines and the king of Moab. They all fought against your ancestors, but your ancestors cried to Yahweh Elohim for help. They said, we have sinned. We left Yahweh Elohim and we served the false gods, Baal and Ashtoreth. But now save us from our enemies and we will serve you. A little bit of background here. Verse 11. So Yahweh Elohim sent Jerub, Baal, Gideon, Barak, Jephthah, and Samuel. He saved you from your enemies around you, and you lived in safety. But then you saw King Nahash of the Ammonites coming to fight you. You said, no, we want a king to rule over us. You said that even though Yahweh your Elohim was already your king, now here is the king you chose. Yahweh Elohim put this king over you. You must fear and respect Yahweh Elohim. You must serve him and obey his commands. You must not turn against him. You and the king ruling over you must follow Yahweh your Elohim. If you do, Elohim will save you. But if you don't listen to Yahweh Elohim, if you refuse to do what Yahweh Elohim says, he will be against you. Yahweh Elohim will destroy you and your king. Now, stand still and see the great thing Yahweh Elohim will do before your eyes. Now is the time of the wheat harvest. I will pray to Yahweh Elohim and ask him to send thunder and rain. Then you will know you did a very bad thing against Yahweh Elohim when you asked for a king. Without all this information, this doesn't seem in the rest of the Bible to be a big thing, does it? In context, you see how huge this was. Verse 18. So Samuel prayed to Yahweh Elohim. That same day, Yahweh Elohim sent thunder and rain. And the people became very afraid of Yahweh Elohim and Samuel. All the people said to Samuel, "Pray to Yahweh your Elohim for us, your servants. Don't let us die. We have sinned many times." Yeah, the truth comes out now, huh? "And now we have added to these sins. We have asked for a king." Samuel answered, "Don't be afraid. It is true that you did all these bad things, but don't stop following Yahweh Elohim. Serve Yahweh Elohim with all your heart. Idols are only statues. They can't help you. So don't worship them. Idols can't help you or save you. They are nothing. But Yahweh Elohim won't leave his people. No, Yahweh Elohim was pleased to make you his own people. So for his own good name, he won't leave you. And as for me, I would never stop praying for you. If I stopped praying for you, I would be sinning against Yahweh Elohim. I will continue to teach you the right way to live a good life. But you must honor Yahweh Elohim. You must serve him sincerely with all your heart. Remember the wonderful things he has done for you. But if you are stubborn and do evil, Elohim will throw you and your king away like dirt swept out with a broom. First Samuel, the 13th chapter, starting at the first verse. Saul was 30 years old when he became king. He ruled over Israel 42 years. Saul chose 3,000 men from Israel. There were 2,000 men who stayed with him at Michmash in the hill country of Bethel. There were 1,000 men who stayed with Jonathan at Gibeah in Benjamin. Saul sent the other men in the army back home. Jonathan defeated the Philistines at their camp in Gibeah. The Philistines heard about this. They said, "The Hebrews have rebelled." Saul said, "Let the Hebrews, Hebrew people, hear what happened." So Saul told the men to blow trumpets through all the land of Israel. All the Israelites heard this news. Saul has killed the Philistine leader. Now the Philistines will really hate the Israelites. The Israelites were called to join Saul at Gilgal. The Philistines gathered to fight Israel. The Philistines camped at Michmash, east of Beth Aven. They had 3,000 chariots and 6,000 horse soldiers. There were so many Philistines that they were like sand on the seashore. The Israelites saw that they were in trouble. They felt trapped. They ran away to hide in caves and cracks in the rock. They hid among the rocks, in wells, and in holes, in other holes in the ground. Some Hebrews even went across the Jordan River to the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul was still at Gilgal. All the men in his army were shaking with fear. Samuel said he would meet Saul at Gilgal. Saul waited there 7 days. But Samuel had not yet come to Gilgal. And the soldiers began to leave Saul. So Saul said, "Bring me the burnt offerings and the fellowship offering." Then Saul offered the burnt offerings. As soon as Saul finished the offering, that sacrifice, Samuel arrived. Samuel went out to meet him. Samuel asked, "What have you done?" Saul answered, "I saw the soldiers leaving me. You were not here on time, and the Philistines were gathering at Michmash. I thought to myself, well, here we go again." I thought to myself, the Philistines will come here and attack me at Gilgal. And I haven't asked Yahweh Elohim to help us yet. So I forced myself to offer this burnt offering. You forced yourself? Excuses, excuses, excuses. Verse 13. Samuel said, "You did a foolish thing. You did not obey Yahweh your Elohim. If you had done what he commanded, Elohim would have let your family rule Israel forever." Don't miss this. But now your kingdom won't continue. Yahweh Elohim was looking for a man who wants to obey him. He has found that man, and Elohim has chosen him to be the new leader of his people because you didn't obey his command. Verse 15. Then Samuel got up and left Gilgal. Saul and the rest of his army left Gilgal and went to Gibeah in Benjamin. Saul counted the men who were still with him. There were about 600. Saul, his son Jonathan, and the soldiers went to Geba in Benjamin. The Philistines were camped at Michmash, so their best soldiers began the attack. The Philistine army split into 3 groups. One group went north on the road to Ophrah, near Shual. The second group went southeast on the road to Beth-Horon. And the third group went east on the road to the border. That road looks over the valley of Zeboim toward the desert. There were no blacksmiths in Israel. The Philistines would not allow them because they were afraid the Israelites would make iron swords and spears. Only the Philistines could sharpen iron tools. So if the Israelites needed to sharpen their plows, hoes, axes, or sickles, they had to go to the Philistines. You know they're not free, are they? 21. The Philistine blacksmiths charged 1/3 ounce of silver for sharpening plows and hoes, and 1/6 ounce of silver for sharpening picks, axes, and the iron tip on ox goads. Those were important because an ox will not move until he's poked in the right place. And the oxes were very important in battles. That was like having a small tank on your side. Verse 22. So on the day of battle, none of the Israelite soldiers with Saul had iron swords or spears. Only Saul and his son Jonathan had such weapons. A group of Philistine soldiers guarded the mountain pass at Michmash. Continuing in 1 Samuel, the 14th chapter, the 1st verse. That day, Saul's son Jonathan was talking with the young man who carried his weapons. Jonathan said, "Let's go to the Philistine camp on the other side of the valley." But Jonathan did not tell his father. Saul was sitting under a pomegranate tree at the threshing floor at the edge of the hill. Saul had about 600 men with him. This, while a battle was raging over the hill, he was sitting under a pomegranate tree. I gotta point this stuff out because we are not warriors. And even if you're not warriors, you see something wrong with this picture. Everybody else was fighting and he was sitting under a pomegranate tree. Verse 3. One of the men was named Ahijah. Ahijah was a son of Ichabod's brother, Ahitub. Ahitub was the son of Phinehas. Phinehas was the son of Eli, if you remember back. Eli had been Yahweh Elohim's priest at Shiloh. Now, Ahijah was the priest who wore the ephod. These men did not know that Jonathan had left. Jonathan was planning to go through a pass to get to the Philistine camp. There was a large rock at each side of the pass. The large rock on one side was named Bozez, The large rock on the other side was named Sina. One of the rocks faced north toward Mishmash, and the other faced south toward Jeba. Jonathan said to his helper, who carried his weapons, "Come on, let's go to the camp of those foreigners. Maybe Yahweh will use us to defeat them." Nothing can stop Yahweh, Elohim. It doesn't matter if we have many soldiers or just a few soldiers. Somebody had some faith, huh? The young man who carried Jonathan's weapons said to him, "Do what you think is best. Whatever you decide, I am with you all the way." Jonathan said, "Let's go. We'll cross the valley and go to the Philistine guards. We'll let them see us. If they say to us, 'Stay there until we come to you,' we will stay where we are. We won't go up to them. But if the Philistine men say, 'Come up here,' then we will climb up to them. That will be a sign from Elohim." That will mean that Elohim will allow us to defeat them. He made his own deal. Verse 11. So Jonathan and his helper let the Philistines see them. The Philistine guards said, "Look, the Hebrews are coming out of their holes they were hiding in." The Philistines in the fort shouted to Jonathan and his helper, "Come up here, we'll teach you a lesson." Jonathan said to his helper, "Follow me up the hill. Yahweh Elohim is letting Israel defeat the Philistines." So Jonathan climbed up the hill with his hands and feet, and his helper was right behind him. Jonathan and his helper attacked them. In the first attack, they killed 20 Philistines in an area about 1/2 an acre in size. Jonathan fought the men who attacked from the front. His helper came from behind him and killed the men who were only wounded. Great fear spread among the Philistine soldiers, those in the field, in the camp, and at the fort. Even the bravest soldiers were afraid. The ground began to shake, and they were completely overcome with fear. Saul's guards at Gibeah in the land of Benjamin saw the Philistine soldiers running away in different ways. Saul said to the army with him, "Count the men. I want to know who left the camp." They counted the men. Jonathan and his helper were gone. 2 men did all this? Saul said to Ahijah, "Bring Elohim's holy box." They're talking here about the ark. At that time, Elohim's holy box was there with the Israelites. Verse 19. Saul was talking to Ahijah, the priest, waiting for advice from Elohim. But the noise and confusion in the Philistine camp was growing and growing. Saul was becoming impatient. Finally, he said to Ahijah the priest, "That's enough. Put your hand down and stop praying." Saul gathered his army together and went to the battle. The Philistine soldiers were very confused. They were even fighting each other with their swords. He actually thought his men were doing that? He thought his men were causing them to fight each other like that? The man is a little bit touched in the head at this point. Ego, most likely. Verse 21. There were Hebrews who served the Philistines in the past and who stayed in the Philistine camp. But now these Hebrews joined the Israelites with Saul and Jonathan. All the Israelites who had hidden in the hill country of Ephraim heard the Philistine soldiers were running away. So these Israelites also joined in the battle and began chasing the Philistines. So Yahweh Elohim saved the Israelites that day. The battle moved on past Beth-aven. The whole army was with Saul. He now had about 10,000 men. The battle spread to every city in the hill country of Ephraim. But Saul made a big mistake that day. He made this oath: if any man eats before evening comes, before I finish defeating my enemies. Who defeats who? I finish defeating my enemies, he will be under a curse. He made the soldiers promise not to eat. So none of them ate anything. In the middle of a fight? A war? Verse 25. Because of the fighting, the people went into some woods. Then they saw a honeycomb on the ground. The Israelites went up to the honeycomb, but they didn't eat any of it. They were afraid to break the promise. 27. But Jonathan didn't know about the oath because they weren't there. He didn't hear his father make the promise to not eat anything. Jonathan had a stick in his hand, so he dipped the end of the stick into the honeycomb and pulled out some honey. He ate the honey and began to feel better. One of the soldiers told Jonathan, "Your father forced the soldiers to make a special promise. He said that any man who eats today will be under a curse. So the men have not eaten anything. That's why they are weak." Jonathan said, "My father has brought a lot of trouble to the land. See how much better I feel after tasting just a little of this honey? It would have been much better for the men to eat the food that they took from their enemies today. We could have killed more Philistines." That day, the Israelites defeated the Philistines. They fought them all the way from Michmash to Ajalon. So the people were very tired and hungry. They had taken sheep, cattle, and calves from the Philistines. Now they were so hungry. that they killed the animals on the ground and ate them. And the blood was still in the animals. Someone said to Saul, "Look, the men are sinning against Yahweh Elohim. They're eating meat that still has blood in it." Well, there goes that whole idea that the law was done away somehow at this point in favor of grace. I see both in action in this part of the book. Saul said, "You have sinned. Roll a large stone over here now." Then Saul said, "Go to the men and tell them that each one must bring his bull and sheep to me. Then the men must kill their bulls and sheep. Here, don't sin against Yahweh Elohim. Don't eat meat that still has blood in it." That night, everyone brought their animals and killed them there. Then Saul built an altar for Yahweh Elohim. Saul himself began building that altar for Yahweh Elohim. Saul said, "Let's go after the Philistines tonight. We will take everything from them. We will kill them all." The army answered, "Do whatever you think is best." But the priest said, "Let's ask Elohim." Somebody was thinking. 37. So Saul asked Elohim, "Should I go chase the Philistines? Will you let us defeat the Philistines?" But Elohim did not answer Saul that day. So Saul said, "Bring all the leaders to me. Let's find who committed the sin today. I swear by Yahweh Elohim, who saves Israel, that even if my own son Jonathan sinned, he must die." None of the people said a word. Then Saul said to all the Israelites, "You stand on this side, and I and my son Jonathan will stand on the other side." The soldiers answered, "As you wish, sir." 41. Then Saul prayed, "Sovereign Elohim of Israel, why haven't you answered me today? Show us who sinned. If it was I or my son Jonathan, give Urim. But if it was your people, Israel, who sinned, give Thummim." Now he's even going for the Urim and Thummim. Anything for an answer. The lack of an answer was an answer. Saul and Jonathan were shown to be the ones who sinned, and the people went free. Saul said, "Throw them again to show the guilty one." Throw them again. I don't like that answer. "Me or my son Jonathan?" Jonathan was shown to be the one. Saul said to Jonathan, "Tell me what you have done." Jonathan told Saul, "I only tasted a little bit from the end of my stick. Should I die for doing that?" Saul said, "I made an oath, and asked Elohim to punish me if I didn't keep it. Jonathan, you must die. But the soldiers said to Saul, Jonathan led Israel to a great victory today. Must Jonathan die? Never. Wasn't their call. But we see what happens here. As surely as Yahweh Elohim lives, not one hair of Jonathan's head will fall to the ground. Elohim helped Jonathan fight against the Philistines today. So the people saved Jonathan from death. Saul did not chase the Philistines. The Philistines went back to their place. Saul took full control of Israel and fought all the enemies who lived around Israel. Saul fought Moab, the Ammonites, Edom, the king of Zobah, and the Philistines. He defeated Israel's enemies wherever he went. Saul was very brave. He saved Israel from all the enemies who tried to take things from the Israelites. He even defeated the Amalekites. Saul's sons were 1 Samuel, the 15th chapter. I want to rush it a little bit to close out. The main point here, though, he still disobeyed first. 1 Samuel, the 15th chapter, the first verse. One day Samuel said to Saul, Yahweh Elohim sent me to anoint you king over his people Israel. Now listen to his message. Yahweh All-Powerful says, when the Israelites came out of Egypt, the Amalekites tried to stop them from going to Canaan. I saw what the Amalekites did. Now, go fight against the Amalekites. You must completely destroy the Amalekites and everything that belongs to them. Don't let anything live. You must kill all the women and the men and all of their children and their little babies. You must kill all of their cattle and sheep and all their camels and donkeys. Saul gathered the army together at Telaim. There were 200,000 foot soldiers and 10,000 other men, including the men from Judah. Then Saul went to the city of Amalek and waited in the valley. He said to the Kenites, go away, leave the Amalekites. Then I won't destroy you with the Amalekites. You showed kindness to the Israelites when they came out of Egypt. So the Kenites left the Amalekites. Saul defeated the Amalekites. He fought them and chased them away from Havilah to Shur. At the border of Egypt, Agag was the king of the Amalekites. Saul captured Agag alive. That was strike 3, by the way. If anybody's counting, that was strike 3. Saul let Agag live, but he killed all the men in Agag's army. Saul and the Israelite soldiers felt bad about destroying everything, so they let Agag live. They also kept the fat cattle, the best sheep, and the lambs. They kept everything that was worth keeping. They didn't want to destroy these things. They destroyed only what was not worth keeping. So then Samuel received this message from Yahweh Elohim. Saul has stopped following me. So I am sorry that I made him king. He is not doing what I told him to do. Samuel became angry and cried to Yahweh Elohim all night. Samuel got up early the next morning and went to meet Saul. But the people told Samuel, Saul went to Carmel. He went there to set up a stone monument to honor himself. Then he left there and went down to Gilgal. So Samuel went to Saul. Saul had just offered the first part of the things that he took from the Amalekites as a burnt offering to Yahweh Elohim. When Samuel came near Saul, Saul greeted him and said, Yahweh bless you. I have obeyed Yahweh's commands. But Samuel said, what's that I hear over there? Why do I hear sheep and cattle? Saul said, the soldiers took them from the Amalekites. The soldiers took them? They only act on orders from their leader. Who took them? They saved the best sheep and cattle to burn as sacrifices to your Yahweh, catch that, Yahweh, your Elohim. But we destroyed everything else. Samuel said, stop! Let me tell you what Yahweh Elohim told me last night. Saul answered, tell me what he said. Samuel said, in the past, you didn't think that you were important. But Elohim chose you to be the king. So you became the leader of the tribes of Israel. Yahweh sent you on a special mission. He said, go and destroy all the Amalekites. They are evil people. Destroy them all. Fight them until they are completely finished. So why didn't you listen to Yahweh? You did what Yahweh said is wrong because you wanted to keep what you took in battle. Saul said, but I did obey Yahweh. I went where Yahweh sent me. I destroyed all the Amalekites. I brought back only one, their king, Agag. Yahweh your Elohim at Gilgal. But Samuel answered, which pleases Yahweh more, burnt offerings and sacrifices, or obeying his commands? It is better to obey Yahweh Elohim than to offer sacrifices to him. It is better to listen to him than to offer the fat from rams. Refusing to obey is as bad as the sin of sorcery or witchcraft. Being stubborn and doing what you want is like the sin of worshiping idols. You refused to obey Yahweh's command, so he now refuses to accept you as king. Then Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned. I did not obey. Too late now. Yahweh's commands. And I did not do what you told me. I was afraid of the people. Always an excuse. Always an excuse. I was afraid of the people. And I did what they said. Oh, that was easy. They can't do anything to you. Now I beg you, forgive me for doing this sin. Come back with me, so I may worship Yahweh Elohim. But Samuel said to him, I won't go back with you. You rejected Yahweh's command, and now Yahweh rejects you as king of Israel. When Samuel turned to leave, Saul caught Samuel's robe. The robe tore. Samuel said to Saul, in that same way, Yahweh has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today. He has given the kingdom to one of your friends, a man who is a better person than you. Don't miss this description. It clears up a little question that the Jews have had until this day. The one who lives forever, that's not David. The one who lives forever. Say it again. The one who lives forever, the Elohim of Israel, does not lie and will not change his mind. He is not like a man who is always changing his mind. Saul answered, all right, I've sinned, but please come back with me. Show me some respect in front of the leaders and the Israelites. What does that have to do with anything now? He still doesn't want to look bad in front of the people. The Father has already rejected you. What matters what the people think. This was what was striking to me. Samuel said, bring King Ahab, King Agag of the Amalekites to me. Agag came to Samuel. Agag was tied with chains and thought, surely he won't kill me. But Samuel said to Agag, your sword took babies from their mothers. So now your mother will have no children. And Samuel cut Agag to pieces before Yahweh Elohim at Gilgal. Then Samuel left and went to Ramah. And Saul went up to his home in Gibeah. After that, Samuel never saw Saul again. Samuel was very sad for Saul. And Yahweh was very sad that he made Saul king of Israel. Any questions? Any comments? Rashida?
I have a comment. I think it's interesting that it kind of goes back to how the last would be first and the first would be last. I think it's interesting how he made a Benjamite, who we know that Benjamin was the last son of Jacob, into the first king of Israel. And then how David was the last son of Jesse, then becomes the second king of Israel. It's just amazing how that worked out, how he chose the youngest of the tribe, the youngest tribe, Benjamin's tribe, to be the first, or selected from Benjamin's tribe to be the first king. It's interesting.
Any others?
Pastor, in 1 Samuel 12, verse 17. See, when Samuel was talking to him, and he said, "Is today not the wheat harvest?" Was that in the fall?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You don't want rain during the harvest.
Yep, ruin everything.
They'll get moldy.
Yep.
Sister Sherry has a question.
Sherry.
Pastor, chapter 14, when he says, I go down, he was speaking to Elohim and he was looking for an answer. And the father had already turned his face from him because he didn't give him an answer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it begun right
Mm-hmm.
there.
Sometimes the answer is no answer at all. That answer is, in that case, no. No.
But he proceeded to continue to
Do it anyway.
as he
Mm-hmm.
decided.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He just got worse.
Strike two. Thurman.
I was thinking in chapter 15, verse 30, the way Saul was carrying on, wanting to be reinstated. He reminded me of Esau after he gave up his birthright and missed out on the blessing. He wanted to be forgiven, but there was no forgiveness for him.
Yep. That happens so often because you think there's always another chance, because he is eminently forgiving, but not everything has an ending. You cut yourself off sometimes and you don't know when that cutoff is. You know that way to do things. You got to be able to do things that way always. Rashida.
One, I'm so glad you brought that up, Brother Thurman, because I have a question about that verse where it says that Esau, even though he sought repentance with tears and was not there for him. So I have a question about that. Was that because the forgiveness was not there for him, or because he wasn't truly repentant?
He wasn't truly.
I don't think he was truly
Okay, that's
repentant.
And then I love what you're saying about how it's like what I think there's something in James where he says, to him who knows what is sin and chooses not to.
Yes, exactly.
Let me find it, 'cause I don't know. Come back to me. I'll find it. It's James 2.
While she's looking, you had something?
Skip me.
No. Bella?
Why was he so interested in what the people thought when he was
Look through the book. Even the Israelites and the Pharisees, even, they didn't kill him until they had the people's approval to do so. That's how we are as people. We are more a product of our environment than our God.
didn't serve your father? You want to listen to what the people said?
We always do. And interesting thing is going to happen even in the coming tribulation. The same thing is going to happen. When they have the choice between Sabbath and Sunday, and they know what it is, so many people are going to, the majority in this democracy, they want the numbers to be there for them, and that will trump everything else, so to speak.
Father can do,
Mm-hmm.
and the people can't do this. Why would you listen to the people? That's the thought.
Just watch it happen again, and don't be caught worshiping on the wrong day.
James 4:17.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. I I just wanted to find it. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin.
Ruby.
That's what I
I
was
think Brother Berman has.
No, no,
Oh,
James 4:17.
Just amazes
oh, yeah,
me.
James 4:17.
It amazes me, even through all this going back and forth, the father still wanted them to just get it right. And I think of what we're going through right now with all these killings, I'm thinking, Father, help me to do your will and not focus so much on what they're not doing. And it just does something that overwhelms me. Last night my aunt called me, and one of the women that's not doing very well, and she asked if I was going to the funeral, the two funerals for my cousin and my uncle. And I said I have to stay behind and take care of my dad, because he's not doing that great. And then she says, how are your children doing? And then she said very proudly, as even though you could hear her breath go, she says, I'm grateful to God that my children are studious and have degrees and have this and that. And she went on and on and on, and I'm thinking, this woman can't even get her breath, but and then she says, are you still struggling at school, your children? And with that, the stubbornness, and it says, did they leave church? It says, you know what, dear? They have, but the Father has something planned for them. Because if I continue to do the right thing, the Father's not going to leave them. Well, the problem with your church, you guys don't have educated people and don't have youth that would help each other, fill each other up. She started breathing faster, and I'm thinking, well, you're the way you are because of your disobedience. You left out. I could have said a lot of things, but then I said to myself, this is where we
Not your
get
place.
tested. This is not my place. I want to say something. I said, well, you know what? Well, Mike, I said, no, it's not the time.
He can do it more creatively than you
Yes.
ever could.
And
And she'll get it from them.
Right. And I
She'll
see
get it from
that,
him.
And I said to myself, all my cousins, none of them are in Sabbath anymore. They all do Christmas, they do this, and they do. And she asked me this, are your children obedient to you? And I says, what do you consider obedience? As long as they have an understanding of what they need to do before the Father. That's before the Father and the children. I don't need to explain myself. It just, my heart just kind of just like, and I said, Father, with all of that's going on, she said that. And I said, no, Father, shut my mouth. Let me be gentle and just wish her well. And that's what I did. I hung up and I took a deep breath. I says, okay, I can't breathe well now because I was overwhelmed. I've been going through so much. And I came home tired. And I woke up tired because I had so much going on. I wasn't going to go. I said, no, Father. I'm going to listen to it as I continue coming here. And they feel great. And that's how the Father does it. He works himself. I love it.
Develop first.
I'm glad to see Jesus of freedom, that's true. Because there's many people that know better, and they don't do it. They know the holy days, they know this, they've learned this, and they won't do it because if I do this, I lose my people. What gains man to when the whole world loses souls? You know, you can't do
Sure.
that. But I thank God for that. It's a powerful verse.
I was having a conversation with a really close friend of mine who grew up in the church, but she's phasing out of the church. She's going to Sunday. She's just kind of just letting it go because she feels like the doctrine is done away with, the theology is done away with. And so we're looking at things from very different vantage points. And so we were having a discussion last night, and she said, well, I don't know why. She's like, this is my problem with the church, is that there's no love. We don't have enough love in the church. It's all about the law and the doctrine. I'm like, okay, I can see how you could see that. But I said, if you look at Galatians, the love and the law go hand in hand. The reason why we do and follow and obey the law is because we love the Father and we know that He values it. And she's like, well, no, all you have to do is love Christ and it's okay. I'm like, okay, well, let's take it from a child's point. Let's do it from a parental point of view. If you have a child, you tell him to take the garbage out, he doesn't do it. You tell him to go to school, he skips with his friends. You tell him to eat his vegetables, he doesn't eat anything. You tell him everything you tell him to do. If you tell him to go left, he goes right. If you tell him to go right, he goes left. He does everything opposite of what you command him to do. Would you think that child loves you? He's like, no, of course not. I'm going to keep hating me. I'm like, okay. So the Father is telling you to keep the Sabbath holy and you're going on Sunday. If the Father is telling you not to eat these things and you're eating them anyway. If the Father is telling you to do all these certain things and you're not listening.
Where's the love in
Where's
that?
the love in that? And she's like, well, I can see what you're saying, but if the love is deeper,
I want whatever I want.
what about yours? It's a relationship. It's like, okay, yes, you know that the love is
That
there
was
for
the
you.
lesson there for Saul. Exactly.
It's kind of funny how it all fits together. But yes, she's like, I know that God loves me tremendously. Yes, He does. He sent His Son to die for you, to die for your sin. And how do you know what sin is if you don't know the law?
Well, I think the problem was though with the church way back,
Yeah.
that they focused so much on works, and we're saved by grace and faith.
Yes,
We know that,
exactly,
and not of
right.
ourselves. But it was always works. If you don't do this, you won't be in the kingdom. If you don't do that, you won't be in the kingdom. And that's what wrecked a lot of people.
I agree, but I feel like we have, I don't like to say the word evolved, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think that we progressed in such a way where we now know that the obedience stems from the love first. The love is the foundation. Because we know we're not
And
justified by
it's
what
all
we do.
combined. It's all combined.
Exactly, but
the
now
thing
it's
is-
like, let's take away the law and
Yeah, well,
obedience and just
The church
focus on
did
the love.
that because they were pushing some doctrines that were more dependent on the law
Exactly.
than they should have been.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and that's,
And not necessarily the law that the Bible speaks of.
exactly.
And the other ones that weren't involved in that, the other 632, whatever it was.
And plus, way back in the old days, the only time they mentioned the scripture was saved by grace through faith. Only around Passover. Otherwise, it wasn't mentioned, right? It wasn't mentioned during the, you gotta do this, your works are, but only we're saved by grace at Passover, that's all.
Yeah, and I know, because
That's right,
Eileen talks
right.
about worldwide and how that was, but I feel like things have changed so much
Yeah, they have.
because we're studying now for
Exactly,
ourselves and
people
not
have
just
awakened. Exactly.
right. And so, and then again, she said, "Well, love that conquers all." Which yes,
It
I
does,
get
yeah.
it. But I'm like, okay, if your love covers your own sin, then that means that you are your own savior. Which means that the Christ
And
did
you not
don't
don't have
die
one.
for our sins because your
You
love
don't have one.
covers already. So
You don't have one.
That's what I'm saying. It just completely says that He gave of Himself in vain because your love, you loving Christ, covers your sins. So why did you need a Savior to die for you? To cover your sins. Oh, I'm not saying that. Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
So it's
In your own
sad,
way.
but
In your own way. Thurman.
His love, but there
I
can be my
just thought
love.
of a verse, I think they go along with this, First Timothy, chapter 1, verse 5. Now the purpose of the commandment is love from a pure heart, from a good conscience, and from a sincere faith, which some, having strayed, have turned aside to idle talk. So that was First Timothy, chapter 1, verse 5 and 6.
Thank you.
First Timothy.
Chapter 1, verse 5 and verse 6. Well, verse 5 was saying, now the purpose of the commandment is love from a pure heart. That's the purpose of it. And also, Messiah is the end of the law. There was another verse that said, Messiah is the end of the law. That's what we are reaching toward, in our obedience, come to Messiah. Well, I'm not going to add that verse right now, but that was another verse that came to mind.
Thank you.
So that was 1 Timothy 1:5 and verse 6.
You got to have the whole book. And you don't have the whole book, you have half a lie.
Right, you can't take care of it.